Melissa, hey, how are you? Janie Lee, hey, how you doing? Proverbs, I'm still here. Just got a lot going on, but I'm still here. We are going to have some conversations tonight, dear people. We're going to have some conversations tonight, and hopefully, um, people can get some of their questions answered and we can make some things a bit more clear for the people one time. Appreciate that, Proverbs. People have been looking for you. Thank you, Melissa. Look like we got a slow night in here. I'm going to try to hold up real quick before I get into the information because we usually have to end up repeating things, which I don't mind, but if we can, make sure I spell this right. Where is it? While we're waiting on a few more folks to come in, I'm going to go ahead and put one of the rallies up. And I'm noticing what they did on here. They did the right thing.
All right.
Miss Dunbar, hey, how you doing?
All right, get ready to refresh. Get ready to refresh real quick.
They kind of changed the narrative at the protest. What they
Boy, I did it. I did it and kept you guys, boy. I'm
what
good.
they
Boy, I took y'all off this. Boy, I'm good. Hey, let me get my little room. Hold on. I'm finna book it right now.
They changed the narrative. They changed the vibe at the protest today.
Minutes, find me some shelter.
So this is in Minneapolis. Right now this is streaming live. And you hear that music in the background? That's how you change things up. That's how you switch it up.
Let me squat down so I can read some chat too while I do this. On the Kimball side again. Yes, I believe it. I believe they're gonna be coming hard. Hey, Christopher. Hey, Christopher, you still here? Christopher, thanks for that 20 in the direct PayPal. Appreciate you. Thanks for supporting the stream. Shout out to Christopher.
Did you say we're trying to set the date tomorrow? Okay, because we're just gonna. I live right here between the house. I'm fucking headed south. Like south 17. You get too far away. What's that? Okay. Yeah. I got my supposedly.
Remember, the mayor said that they're gonna close off all freeways. You know, shut off all freeways and on ramp. You know what I mean? As well, in the room I want to go to, it takes everywhere to get there. So, man, I gotta hear start really searching, but I don't think I'll move it. Let me see. Yeah, they said they're gonna shut down the 94.
Okay, guys, so I have this up here playing right now, just so you guys can see that it's a bit more calm tonight. Hey, Liddy Lit, how you doing? How you doing?
7 miles away. It says get on the freeway, but I can actually like
try to shut the highways down. It's crazy. Melissa, you're in Minneapolis.
New Zealand is gay. Oh, what's up, Smooth? Not New Zealand.
So good thing is it's pretty calm right now. James, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Oh, you're in St. Paul, Minnesota. Oh wow, be safe, y'all. Be safe. Be safe. Last night we were having a conversation. I'm gonna turn this down. Last night we were having a conversation. Hey, K baby.
Wow, they said they closed. They said they closed. Like they're not taking no reservations.
We were having a conversation about how the charges were filed on this.
Let me just get one of these little hole in the walls.
On Mr. Chauvin the other day, the 3rd degree murder. And I went over the complaint from Mr. Chauvin that was filed by the state on last night. And I also gave you the reasons that I thought, just based on the complaint, the reasons that I felt they did not charge him with 1st degree murder.
Appreciate you.
And I'll just pull the complaint back up really quick. And then I'm going to show you guys something else. And hopefully it'll make sense to you after seeing something from an actual attorney, because I am not an attorney. Never claimed to be, but I have worked in the justice field for years. I've had to go to court a lot. I've had to write affidavits. I've had to do rules to show cause. I've had to rule people back into court. I've had to come up with those charges for those people and submit them to solicitors and things of that nature. So I am just a little familiar now. I'm not claiming to be the expert and the know-all of all things legal, but I do know a little bit about something. So what I was saying last night is the reason why they didn't come with the 1st degree off the top was because Mr. Chauvin, in order for them to have that 1st degree murder, they had to be able to show that it was premeditated. And it can't be something that they're guessing or something that they, think is premeditated. You actually have to be able to prove that. And then you still have to deal with that thing called intent. So that's why I was saying that they came with the 3rd degree from the beginning, because you can see the 3rd degree just based off the video itself. So just to give you guys a recap of last night without just showing it to you again. 3rd degree murder in Minnesota involves killing another person without premeditation and intent through inherently dangerous acts and with no regard for human life. So with that third degree, they don't have to prove that it was premeditated. Hey, piece in the puzzle, and they don't have to prove that there was any intent. All they have to show is his behaviors, his dangerous behaviors, him putting his knee in George's neck. They just have to show that him putting his knee in his neck contributed to his death. So in order to appease everybody and go ahead and get him charged, then they go ahead and they hit him with that third degree murder charge, because if they had to go to court today, or whatever day they finally filed yesterday, whatever day they finally filed, then they can go ahead. If they had to present that to a judge and before a jury on today, they had enough to prove third degree murder. If they were to try to go with second degree, and of course they also charge them with manslaughter. If they had to go with, and let me go over the manslaughter too, so you'll see why they chose this one too. In Minnesota, manslaughter is defined or can be described as a crime of extreme passion or negligence. Extreme passion or negligence. So they just have to show that you were negligent. The fact that the man told you that he could not breathe for several minutes. He told you couldn't breathe. He told you his chest was hurting, his stomach was hurting, everything was hurting. He told you that he could not breathe. You saw that he was non-responsive. And even with you knowing that he was non-responsive, and with another one of the officers telling you that he did not have a pulse, y'all still did not get up off him, and you still did not get off his neck. That is negligent. So that's something that can be proved today. Whether nobody testifies, that can be proved today. So that's where you get those two charges from. Now, there's nothing that says that those charges will not be upgraded later. But as of today, that's what the charges are. They did enough to go ahead and arrest him based on what they could prove today. In order for someone to get a, let me see if I got this up here.
Yeah, come on, bro. Everything is full.
If I got this on here.
Yeah, probably so.
I just pull it up. In order for them to be able to prove first degree murder, like I told y'all last night, there are four components. There are four different components of first degree murder. And one of those is premeditation. And that's the only one that they could have possibly used in order to get that first degree murder charge. That's the only one. Everything, nothing else. The rest of the other three do not apply. They're not applicable to this case. So the only one that they could go off of was premeditation. Is it possible that it was premeditated? We could say that the premeditation started the moment that he put his knee on his neck and the guy was telling him that he could not breathe. He thought about it, meditated on it, and he decided that he was not going to move and he was going to stay there until he died. We could say that was premeditated. But even if we say that that part was premeditated, how can we prove that he sat there and thought about it? We see it. How can we prove that that's what his actions are and what his actual intentions were? Did he wake up on May the 25th and say, I feel like killing George Floyd today? Was that his intention? When he walked up on that scene, when he first restrained him, was his initial intention to kill him? Now, the thing that goes along with that that's also going to come into play is we did find out that these two men at some point worked together at the same establishment as bouncers. So there is a chance that there could have been some type of relationship there that we don't know about. They could have crossed paths at some point. We just don't know. So, but we don't know if they knew each other. The owner of the club is saying they didn't know each other. If they knew each other, then that is a completely different ball game. But again, whenever you're going to court, whenever it comes to filing charges against somebody, and see, that's what makes this case in comparison to the other case that we've been talking about. That's where the injustice comes in at. It's not all the stuff that other people are saying it is. It's them going ahead and locking him up based on a lot of speculation. Now, some things they say they have evidence for, but the speculation, that's not, you know what I'm saying? So in this particular case, we can speculate that it was premeditated, but these attorneys, they're not playing with it because they understand the importance of what's going on right now. And if they go into that courtroom and they say, we're taking him down for first-degree murder, and they don't meet the criteria, and when it comes to that, you have to meet all of the criteria. Just like for third degree, you have to meet all of the criteria for that particular charge. So for the third degree, they meet the criteria for third degree. They meet the criteria for manslaughter. They don't meet all of the criteria for first-degree murder. So if they go in that courtroom and the defense says, look, it's either murder one or nothing at all. So if they can't prove murder one, they can't go back, oh, wait a minute, let's go, we're going to do murder three. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So they're trying to make sure that there are no missteps in this whole thing. And that's the reason why they're asking people if you still have videos, if you have any information, to send that information to us. That's where that is coming from. So I wanted to go back because I'm subscribed to this guy's channel. I don't know him personally, but I'm subscribed to his channel. And he is an actual attorney. And I think he's based out of Texas. And let me take this down for a minute. I don't know what they got going on over here. So he's an actual attorney based out of Texas. And I just want you guys to see what he had to say. Now, before I go into that, I'm going to go back to this complaint. Now, there are a few things I picked up on that he said that weren't quite right either, but we'll talk about that whenever we get to it. So I'm going to put this complaint up on the big screen again so y'all can see it. Some of you have seen it a couple nights, so just go through it with me. We all grown enough to go and read through this stuff. But again, I just want to go back to the two different charges that he has and why they chose these. So there are certain things that have to be met. Do you have probable cause? Is there enough information to show that, you know, you can charge these people? There are different things that have to be looked at. The complainant, the state that filed this complaint, is saying that there is probable cause to believe that Mr. Chauvin committed these offenses. So the first one is the murder 3, murder third degree, perpetuating imminently dangerous act, and evincing, I can't even talk tonight, evincing depraved mind. Again, this is a felony. The maximum sentence is 25 years. What they're saying is on May 25th, that Chauvin caused the death of George Floyd by perpetrating an act that was imminently dangerous to him by being on his neck and evincing a depraved mind without regard for human life. So basically, he went and put his knee on his neck and had complete disregard for his life, for a human life. So that's also something that they have to look at. Was George Floyd human? Yes. So complete disregard for human life. That second one, manslaughter, second degree. Again, this is a felony. Maximum sentence on this one is 10 years. So if he were to be found guilty on both of these, you have a total already of 35 years. Manslaughter, second degree, culpable negligence, creating unreasonable risk. On May 25th, Chauvin caused the death of George Floyd by his culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk and taking a chance of causing death or great bodily harm to George Floyd by having his knee in his neck, which was cutting off his ability to breathe freely. Now, again, this is a statement of probable cause. So I'm submitting this complaint to you, telling you that there's probable cause. So now I got to tell you what that probable cause is. So I'm going to read through this real quick, y'all. Y'all know. On May 25th, someone called 911 and reported that a man bought merchandise from Cup Foods at 3759 Chicago Ave in Minneapolis. And they used a counterfeit $20 bill. At 8:08 p.m., the police, Thomas Lane and Jay Kyung, I guess, arrived with their body-worn cams activated and running. The officers learned from store personnel that the man who passed the counterfeit $20 bill, which would have been allegedly George Floyd, was parked in a car around the corner from the store on 38th Street. The body cam video obtained by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension shows that the officers approached the car. Officer Lane was on the driver's side, and I'm just going to call this guy K, like I did before, on the passenger side. 3 people were inside the car. There was George Floyd on the driver's side. There was a male on the passenger side, and there was a woman in the back seat. As Officer Lane began speaking with Mr. Floyd, he pulled his gun out and pointed it at Mr. Floyd's open window and directed Mr. Floyd to show his hands. When Mr. Floyd put his hands on the steering wheel, Officer Lane put his gun back in the holster. While Officer K was speaking with the front seat driver, Officer Lane ordered Mr. Floyd out of the car. He put his hands on Mr. Floyd and he pulled him out of the car. Officer Lane handcuffed Mr. Floyd. Mr. Floyd actively resisted being handcuffed. And what I'm going to do when we finish this, I'm going to show you guys something on the video. Once handcuffed, Mr. Floyd became compliant and walked with Officer Lane to the sidewalk and sat on the ground in Officer Lane's direction. In a conversation that lasted just under 2 minutes, Officer Lane asked Mr. Floyd for his name and identification. Officer Lane asked Mr. Floyd if he was on anything and explained that he was arresting Mr. Floyd for passing counterfeit currency. First of all, I need him to go back and correct this because I can't believe that they submitted this thing with all these grammatical errors in it, but I digress. Officers K and Lane stood Mr. Floyd up and attempted to walk Mr. Floyd to their squad car at 8:14 p.m. Mr. Floyd stiffened up, fell to the ground, and told the officers that he was claustrophobic. MPD officers Derek Chauvin, who is the defendant, and Tal then arrived in a separate squad car. The officers made several attempts to get Mr. Floyd in the back seat of the car from the driver's side. Mr. Floyd did not voluntarily get in the car and struggled with the officers by intentionally falling down, saying he was not going in the car and refusing to stand still. Mr. Floyd is over 6 feet tall and weighs more than 200 pounds. There's a reason why that was put in there. Mr. Chauvin pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side of the squad car at 8:38 p.m. and Mr. Floyd went to the ground face down and still handcuffed. Officer K held Mr. Floyd, held his back, and Officer Lane held his legs. Chauvin placed his left knee in the area of Mr. Floyd's head and neck. Mr. Floyd said, "I can't breathe," multiple times and repeatedly said, "Mama," and "please" as well. The defendant, Mr. Chauvin, and the other 2 officers stayed in their positions. This is the thing that I was telling you about. This, I don't know if it's just a Southern thing, but it's just something that's always said. The officer said, "You are talking fine." What that means is if you can talk, you can breathe. That's what's usually said. So the officer said, "You can talk, you are talking just fine," to Mr. Floyd as he continued to move back and forth. Lane asked, "Should we roll him on his side?" Chauvin said, "No, he's staying put right where we got him." Officer Lane then said, "I am worried about excited delirium or whatever." The defendant, Mr. Chauvin, said, "That's why we have him on his stomach." So none of the 3 officers moved from their positions. The body camera video shows Mr. Floyd continued to move and breathe. At 8:24, Mr. Floyd stopped moving. At 8:25:31, the video appears to show Mr. Floyd ceasing to breathe or speak. Officer Lane said, "Want to roll him on his stomach?" Officer K checked Mr. Floyd's right wrist for a pulse and said, I couldn't find one. None of the officers moved from their position. So after checking his pulse, not finding the pulse, they still remained on Mr. Floyd's body. At 8:27, the defendant removed his knee from Mr. Floyd's neck upon the ambulance and emergency medical personnel arriving. The officers placed Mr. Floyd on a gurney and the ambulance left the scene. And that's exactly what happened. They did not administer any life-threatening measures, no CPR. They didn't do anything. And that's what they're supposed to do when they come up on the scene and someone is non-responsive. Mr. Floyd was pronounced dead at Hennepin County Medical Center. The medical examiner conducted Mr. Floyd's autopsy on May 26th. The full report is pending, but the ME has the following preliminary findings. Remember, these are preliminary findings, and I keep trying to stress that because this is not the final summary of this case. This was just his preliminary findings. The autopsy revealed no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation, meaning that they could not find any physical evidence to show that he was choked to death. Mr. Floyd had underlying health conditions, including coronary artery disease and hypertensive heart disease. The combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. And we know that there were at least two comments that were made in that video that alluded to the idea that he may have been on some type of substance. The defendant had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in total. 2 minutes and 53 seconds, of this was after Mr. Floyd was non-responsive. Police are trained that this type of restraint with the subject in a prone position is inherently dangerous. Again, there's that phrase, inherently dangerous, which is what that third degree and that manslaughter is based on. So I just wanted to go back over this real quick. You guys seeing here that they issued a warrant. They had a warrant issued. People got all fired up because they had breaking news last night saying that the bail was set. The bail was already written in here from the beginning. This is what the state recommended. The bail was set at $500,000 with no conditions of release. So that's what we have right now. Again, he's been charged with 2 felonious acts, and we're going to see what happens from this point with that. Let me go back to your comments really quick. All right, so I wanted you guys to see that part, just giving you the complaint again. And I'm doing this because I saw so many people that kept saying something about the first-degree murder, even last night. And when I went on social media today, especially on Twitter, I'm saying, why wasn't he charged with first-degree murder? And they should have did this and they should have did that. And I really want people to understand that what they were doing, because people think that they were just trying to get over, and that's not the case. I really want people to understand what's going on and why they chose to do things the way that they did them. Now, another attorney may have done it completely different and just went straight for the gut with first degree off the bat. I mean, that would have been up to them. But the thing that they needed at this particular time was to get him charged, because without any charges, then he wouldn't have been apprehended. He would not be detained right now. So murder 3 is safe to keep and charge him with something. Murder 3 is safe right now. Remember, this is just the start. This is only the start. He could still end up with a murder 1 charge. But right now, this was the start. This is what they put on there because they could prove it just from the video without anything else. They could prove this from the video. And I'm not talking about, hey, Trinitina, not the video that was showed to us. They actually reviewed the body cam video. So their complaint was based on what they saw for themselves in the body cam video. People were thinking that it was just based on what the officer said to the police. This has nothing to do with the police report. Everything that they reported on that complaint was what they saw and what they actually heard on the police body cam. That's in addition to what was on the other tape. Thank you, Skepta. So that's why those things were done that way. So I just wanted to give you guys that piece of information. And then what I'm going to do, for those of you that were on here last night, you heard what I said last night. I know y'all heard his wife is filing for divorce. He looks like he was something to deal with. I don't know. But he going to need all the support that he can get right now, because he about to go through. And I need y'all to understand, this is not something that they're going to allow to be brushed under the rug. They can't. They can't brush it or sweep it under the rug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you see what this attorney actually had to say about this. And you can see what I said, and whatever you see that I said that he might have said and it's different, then please take notes so that you can, like, we can compare. Like, Dr. Rogers, you were wrong when he said this. Because again, I'm not an attorney. I'm just familiar with the legal field and the justice system. So he can say something that's completely different based on his experience, and me basing stuff on my experience. Mine is not based on being an attorney. So we're going to compare what was said, what he would have done different, because this guy's actually a defense attorney. Hey, Groovy family. He's not a prosecutor. He's a defense attorney. So he would be the one that would actually be defending Mr. Chauvin. So he's going to give you a different perspective, and we'll just watch it. You guys look at it. I encourage you to take notes. You know, I'm all about the education of it all. And we'll see what goes from there. Good, make him an example. I'm sorry that it took a life from us, but this is a start. All praises. Yeah, you never know what your purpose is, you know what I'm saying, and how things are going to end up. But, you know, Trina, Tina, all of the officers are going to get charged. They're all going to get charged. Right now, it's just a matter of making sure that everybody is charged with the right thing. And if you saw the complaint that I just put up, you're going to see that one of the officers did try to instruct Mr. Chauvin to roll Mr. Floyd over, or to even get him up. And he actually quoted a medical reason for doing so. And because Mr. Chauvin was a more senior officer with over 19 years on the force, and this young guy only has a year on the force, then he just completely disregarded that man, disregarded what that other officer said as well. Best believe that when it comes to them all going to court and them being charged, that man's attorney is not going to sit there and let him take that charge. You see what I'm saying? He going to be like, no, you look at that complaint, you listen at that body camera. My client told him to let him up. And they're going to throw Chauvin under the bus, as they should. At least he will. He's going to throw him under the bus. Now, the complaint didn't say anything about that third officer that was on him saying anything. So I don't know what's going on with him. He's just going to have to take those charges like a man. But as far as Mr. Lane, Mr. Lane's attorney is going to fight that. Definitely going to fight that. You know, you're taught on this job that you listen to the more senior officers, and they were new officers on the street. So when you got this senior officer that got close to 20 years in, you know, and he's taking the lead. Groovy, that's what we're talking about. At this point, it's not a bad thing that they charged him with third-degree murder. They charged him based on the evidence that they had at that particular point. At that particular point, meaning that the evidence, they could show that he met the criteria for that. They didn't reach for something else. Now, as they continue to go through the evidence, like I said, they don't even have the final autopsy results. They don't have the toxicology results. So after they get that, they may get more footage. They'll get to see the other body cams and the different angles from those body cams, because it was more than one body cam there. So as that stuff goes along, then those charges can definitely change. You know what I'm saying? Because It could be that they were walking or doing something and you could hear Chauvin in the video saying, you know, I'm gonna kill this so-and-so. Don't let him up. Let him, like, there could be things that were said on that body cam. Because sometimes, you know, you sitting up there and you running your mouth and you get so big-headed, you know, you don't think about what you saying while that body cam is on. But hey, so I'm going to go and let you guys hear what this attorney had to say about what was going on. And then we're going to come back and we're going to compare notes on this. So let me stop this.
I hope you're having a wonderful day. This is Attorney Augustus Corbett, and I want to share with you, been getting some questions about the charges that Officer Derek Chauvin, I believe is his name, has been leveled against him. So I want to talk about that for.
And I want to say this real quick. I want you guys to notice that he just posted this today. So this wasn't any information that I got from him, because he literally posted this video. I think it's May 30th. Yeah, he posted this today.
Just a while. It's not gonna be long today. And as you see, my law partner is not with me. She has been really busy the past couple of days doing social media, Instagram and podcasting and all of that. So we decided that she would sit it out today, and I would do it myself. All right. So we don't have that young millennial perspective, but I'll get through it okay. Very good. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the George Floyd case and the charges that have been brought against the former officer. A lot of people are very disappointed at what he was charged with. We're going to go through that. I'm going to explain the charges to you, offer you my opinion as to what he should have been charged with. And by the way, let me put his face on the screen. This is the former officer of the Minneapolis Police Department, Derek Chauvin. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. I want to start with this though, as he had his knee in Mr. Floyd's neck. Let me tell you some of the things that he was hearing, because we're just looking at this picture, and just looking at this picture, we don't have the audio. We have heard audio with the videos that are circulating, but I want to make sure I listen very intently through tears. I must say, I listened very intently at some of the things that Mr. Floyd was saying just before he passed, and this is what Mr. Chauvin was hearing, and not just him, but the other three officers as well. Here's some of the things that Mr. Floyd was saying. Mama, I love you. I love you. I can't breathe. Then he would moan. You can hear him say, Mama, I love you. I can't do nothing. My faith is gone. I can't breathe. Please let me stand. I can't breathe, officer. Please, I can't breathe. Those are the things that I heard coming from that video. And Derek Chauvin, he heard those things as well as those other officers. And in fact, I heard Derek Chauvin say to Mr. Floyd in a cruel, taunting way, he said, get up, knowing that he couldn't get up because his knee was in Mr. Floyd's neck. Okay, so I just wanted you to hear some of the things that Mr. Floyd was saying, and these things are critical in this case. So I wanted you to hear it because they are big factors, huge factors in both the criminal case as well as the civil case that's definitely coming. All right. Now, I have here the actual charges and some of the facts as told by the police officers and based on the Hennepin County District Attorney's Office, or County Attorney, I think they call him in Minnesota. Here we call him District Attorney, but there I think he's the County Attorney. And I'm talking about the gentleman there in the suit. He's the County Attorney rather than the District Attorney like we call him here. Okay. So, Mr. Chauvin, date of birth 3/19/1976, is the defendant here in this case. His case is in the 4th Judicial District Court. The complaint reads as follows. The complainant submits this complaint to the court and states that there's probable cause to believe defendant committed the following offenses. Now, I want you to note something. It says there's probable cause to believe, okay? Probable cause, that is a very, very, very low standard in the criminal world. In the legal world, there are 5 different standards. Reasonable suspicion, what a police officer needs to stop your car or to stop you, to question you. Reasonable suspicion. Your tire crossed the yellow line. Something as simple as that. A light was out. That's enough for them to stop you. Reasonable suspicion. Next level is probable cause. Facts and circumstances that suggest a crime was committed and the person committed the crime. That's about that much. I'm showing you how much it is just to show you how low it is. Imagine this is the baseline. Reasonable suspicion is here. I don't know if you can see my hand. Reasonable suspicion is there. Hold on. The baseline is here. Reasonable suspicion is about there. Probable cause is right there. Preponderance of the evidence, 51%. You're able to tilt the scale 51% in your favor in civil cases. Clear and convincing evidence where someone is in a situation where they could lose parental rights, for example. And then there's probable cause. Okay. Notice my hand went out of scale because
that's wrong.
The burden is much higher with probable cause. But pardon me, beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm so sorry. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Let me do it again. Reasonable suspicion, probable cause, preponderance of the evidence, clear and convincing evidence, and then beyond a reasonable doubt. That is way off the scale. Okay, beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what's needed to bring the conviction. But to arrest Mr. Chauvin and to arrest those police officers, all they needed was probable cause. And it was confusing to me why they took so long really to charge and arrest Mr. Chauvin, because the video was way beyond enough to meet the probable cause standard. I mean, just the video by itself was probable cause. Look, my clients don't get that kind of benefit, okay? As soon as my clients would have gotten to the police department, the police would have sworn out an affidavit, given it to the magistrate would have signed off on the arrest warrant immediately.
Right.
That same night, with as fast as the police officer could have done his paperwork. And it probably would have been done before the paperwork, because the officer would have made the arrest on the alleged crime scene.
On site.
Okay, it would have never had to wait to get all the way back to the police station. The police officer would have said, on the crime scene, there's probable cause for me to arrest you. Okay, and so when those officers responded and kind of began to find out, I'm talking about the other officers, not the 4 officers involved in this thing, but when the other officers came and saw what had happened, or was told what happened, definitely when they got back to the station and began to look at body cam and get witness statements and all of that, they should have known immediately, this is not right. This is definitely enough for probable cause, which means there was enough to arrest them almost immediately. Okay, but it took some days, and that is likely because they are police officers. And remember the video we did a couple of days ago where we explained to you that between Tennessee v. Garner and Graham v. Connors, the prosecutor's looking at all the language in those cases to see if they can even prove a case in court with all the leeway that the U.S. Supreme Court has given police officers. All right, now back to the complaint. The complainant submits this complaint to the court, states that there is probable cause to believe defendant committed the following offenses: reasonable suspicion, probable cause, preponderance of the evidence, clear and convincing evidence, beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? So, count 1, murder, 3rd-degree murder, perpetrating imminently dangerous act and evincing depraved mind. And the statute is 609.195, subsection 8. It carries a maximum of 25 years. It is a felony offense. It was allegedly committed on May 25th, 2020. And I have the statute here. I want to read it to you. Murder in the 3rd degree. I had some people that asked me today, what is murder in the 3rd degree under Minnesota law? Now, do keep in mind that I am licensed only in Texas. I'm not licensed in Minnesota. I can read and understand the statutes because most of these homicide statutes are very similar across state lines. However, the nuances of Minnesota law, I would not know. So I'm giving you that disclaimer. But I'm, been doing this almost 15 years now. So I'm fairly confident of what I'm telling you is accurate. 609.195, murder in the 3rd degree. Here's what it requires. Whoever without intent to effect the death of any person causes the death of another by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others and evincing a depraved mind without regard for human life is guilty of murder in the 3rd degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 25 years. And I believe the operative phrase in this statute, and it's why he was probably charged with 3rd degree, is it says whoever without intent to effect the death of any person. I'm thinking that they feel like they didn't have enough evidence to prove that this officer, former officer, was intending to kill George Floyd. I believe it comes down to a matter of intent. When he had his knee in Mr. Floyd's neck, was he intending to kill him? I think another critical issue is what is actually stated in the Minneapolis Police Department procedures in their training book, in their handbook about bringing a suspect into compliance. What can they legally, lawfully do? Can they use their knee in the neck of someone or in the back of someone I think it will come down to that as well. But sticking wholly with the statute, I believe they're saying that they don't have enough evidence to prove that Chauvin intended to kill George Floyd. Okay. Yes, they believe they got the evidence to show that he did an eminently dangerous act, that he evinced a depraved mind, that he had little regard for human life. But those are not the only elements in this statute. And the state has to prove every element in this statute. And in every criminal statute, there's always an intent element that must be proven. Okay. And in this case, it's a specific intent. And that specific intent was that he was intending to murder George Floyd. Now, whether we believe that the evidence would support a guilty verdict is one thing, but it bottoms out to what a jury, after hearing all the evidence, what they think. They're going to be the ones in the courthouse on a daily basis, listening to all the evidence as it comes in via the rules of evidence and criminal procedure and so forth. So once they have heard all the evidence, all the argument, all the opening statements, all the witnesses, all the videos, all of this, then they will make that decision. I believe that the prosecutors think that given the tough job of convicting a police officer in the first place, that they just didn't think they would be able to convince a jury of first degree murder, that, in other words, that Chauvin intended to murder Mr. Floyd. Now, you know, that's reasonable to me, because if you overcharge, it does make the job just that much more difficult. Okay, it certainly does. You're already trying to get a conviction against a police officer,
right?
And that is already hard to do. Okay, very rarely done. 99.9% of these police officer cases don't even result in charges, more or less a conviction. All right, and I'm not saying I agree with the prosecutors, but when I think about it objectively and get out of my emotions and get out of my feelings and my anger and sadness, I, as a lawyer, can understand them thinking the way they're thinking. After all, I haven't seen all the evidence. I've seen only the video that you've seen. Okay. Now, based on what I've seen, I would say, yes, he intended to kill George Floyd, because it looks like it. I mean, he had his whole weight on the man's neck. Moreover, he heard Mr. Floyd begging for his life. Where's that at? I mean, he was literally hearing Mr. Floyd say, "Mama, I love you. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't do nothing. Please let me stand. Please let me stand, officer. I can't breathe." So if you're hearing a dying man tell you that he can't breathe and you continue to apply the pressure, that to me sounds like intent. I mean, that sounds like intent to me. But again, I don't know Minnesota law. I don't have all the information in front of me. I won't be on the jury. And so I don't know. I disagree with it, but I can understand. Now let us look at.
All right. So I'm just gonna stop this for a minute, just to get you guys take. Hey, Tori. Hey, woman of God. Anybody else that came in? If I didn't speak Irish for. Irish Soul for Kelly, anybody else that I didn't speak to, hey, how you doing? So you guys heard what he says so far. Like I said, he's an attorney based out of Texas, and he is actually a defense attorney. So at this point, we pretty much said the same thing in the reasons why they didn't charge him with first degree murder. Could they have tried to charge him with it? Absolutely. Would it have stuck from the beginning? Nobody knows. So in this case, they're trying to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row. Because the worst thing that you can do, like I said, is go before a judge with that first degree and you know that you don't meet all the criteria for it, and you lose that case and he's charged with nothing. You definitely don't want an acquittal on this case. When it comes to the other guys that are involved, Tori, they could actually get the same charges that he got. We don't know yet because we don't know what was shown on the body cameras. That's what it's going to come down to. We saw the stuff from the bystander standpoint, and we did get to see that there were 3 people on his body. But it's really going to boil down to what you can actually see in that body camera. That's really what's going to make the difference, because that gives you a better understanding of what their mindsets were, especially when I said you had the guy that was saying, look, we need to let him up. We need to turn him over. And the other officer wouldn't do it, you know. So that makes a difference. That makes a huge difference. The thing that he's talking about with law enforcement, I can tell you, Lord have mercy. Okay, I won't give the accurate, but I've been involved with law enforcement for over 15 years. I have never been taught at any point. I haven't received any type of defensive or restraining tactics that involve putting my knee in somebody's neck. Ever. But I do know that when it comes down to trying to get these officers charged, trying to get these cops charged, that they fall under a different, I don't want to say code, but it's pretty much a different code, because you're going by the laws of the state and the laws of the federal government, but then you have the laws that you made that oath to. And whenever it comes down to them, you got your regular stuff that you look at, but then you also have to look at what's in that manual. What is in that policy and procedural manual, that training manual, when it comes down to restraining and de-escalating situations. So what he did, the mere fact that what he did was not one of the techniques that he was taught to use, that's something all in itself. But to know that it's a certain type of jujitsu move and the purpose of that move, and most of the moves are based on some type of martial arts, to be honest. But you use that move knowing that the purpose of it was whoever you're doing that to, they're going to die a painful death. And if nobody knows that that's what you're doing, then they don't understand why that person is in so much pain, as the blood flow and the oxygen stops going to the different organs in their bodies. So if you're not familiar with that, then it just looked like he's down there being extra. You understand what I'm saying? Like oh, there's nothing wrong with you. That guy knew exactly what was going on. He knew exactly what was going on. But it still comes down to the prosecution to prove that his intention was to kill him. And that's where you got to dig a little deeper into this thing, because that's not something that the tape, that's not something that you heard him saying. We saw what we thought looked like him intending to kill him. When it comes to the other officers, did they know that what that officer was doing was going to result in this man dying? Did they know that? I can tell you that one officer, he suspected that. That's why he kept making comments to the other officer about letting him up, right? That's why he spoke on extreme delirium, which is a sudden death that often happens to people during that restraint process whenever they're trying to apprehend them. So another something to think about. My 17-year-old nephew was subdued by a police officer, placed in a chokehold, and died because the autopsy showed he had a heart attack. Never mind, his oxygen had been cut off. He was not guilty. Phoenix Rising, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So that preliminary autopsy report, it's not going to show any physical signs of choking on the inside because he didn't physically put his hands around this man's neck and choke him. So you have other autopsies, like when somebody is strangled, they're strangled with the belt, they're strangled with the rope. Then you have ligature marks. If you choke them to death with your hands, you have, prints. Like you press enough that your prints usually makes, little indentions in their neck or whatever. So that's physical evidence. If anything, he should have had like some type of bruise, but that bruise wouldn't necessarily show up on the inside. And with him being a black man, it may not show up on the outside. So what he was doing, it was so methodical. That's what I would say. It was so methodical that he knew that this isn't something that would show up on the autopsy in the first place. What is it going to show? What is it going to show? It'll show that his heart stopped. It'll show that he had some type of respiratory failure. But I mean, you have those underlying health conditions, right? Oh, he has coronary artery disease. He has hypertension. So you got this other stuff. And if what the young man said in the video was true, he said that he had just used some crack. And then the officers even alluded to that, telling them this is what happens when you use drugs. So God forbid they find that in his system, then they're really going to try to run with that. Even though at the end of the day, regardless of what he may have in his system, regardless of any underlying health diseases that he may or may not have had this officer not put his knee in his neck and restricted his breathing, this man would still be alive today. So that's the combination of all these things that's in that report that contributed to his death. Those are the contributing factors that they are speaking on. So that was just some things I wanted you guys to see. If you want to see some more of what this attorney is saying, especially addressing the manslaughter, then y'all put a thumbs up in the comments so I know that y'all want to see this stuff. Of course, this stuff intrigues me, but I don't know if y'all are all into this stuff like I am. So if you want to see what he has to say on the manslaughter part and the case in its totality, then put a thumbs up in the chat so I'll know to finish the video for you guys. I see one. I see one. I think it's important for you guys to see it. So whenever you're having conversations with people and they're saying, no, I know for a fact it should have been this, then you understand exactly why it's not this. And that'll help people get out of their feelings a little bit, thinking that people trying to railroad them. Because when I look at it, I'm seeing, no, they're not trying to railroad him. They're actually trying to make sure that he doesn't get off, because it is hard to convict a cop, especially when he's in the line of duty, when he or she is in the line of duty. And especially when it's not, you shoot somebody, oh, you shot him. Okay, we got 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. I need to get one more before I put this thing up here, because I don't think y'all trying to hear this. Y'all ain't trying to hear this. Let me know. Let me know. We will move on. Going once. Going twice. Thumbs up if you want to hear the rest of what Attorney Corbett has to say about the manslaughter charge and some of the other issues or things that he found in the complaint that was filed by the state by Mr. Mark Freeman. There was no reference of that in the complaint, Phoenix. But like I said, we did see the interview that they did with the woman that both of them worked for part-time. Now, she suggested, because they said they never worked on the same shift, and she said that they only had one overlapping shift. Thank you, James. They only had one overlapping shift. So she said that if it was possible that they may have saw each other in passing, but she didn't think that they knew each other. Don't know, but anything's possible. I think it's interesting that they both worked at the same place part-time. I think that is very interesting. So and even if you get upset with somebody because they're putting their weight down, like they're getting, stiffening up so that you can't move them. Okay, they stiffened up. And my thing, okay, you want to lay on the ground, go ahead and lay there. And we'll let me know when you finish his neck and all that. I don't know what this thing got going on, jumping all over the place. So I'll go. So I'm going to go back to the video and play a little bit more, and we can see what Mr. Augustus feels about the manslaughter and some other things in the case that he saw on the complaint.
Let me see, the first degree murder charge, because that's what a lot of you want. You want first degree. You're disappointed in the third degree complaint charge count. Let's look at the first degree and see what it requires. Okay, let me get a drink of water here, please. All right, first degree, section 609.18185. It reads, whoever does any of the following is guilty of murder in the first degree and shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life. 1, causes the death of a human being with premeditation, underscore that, and with intent. Okay, we're back to intent. With intent to affect the death of the person or of another. So this is basically 4 elements here. First, prosecutor has to prove that death occurred. Second, that it was the death of a human being. Third, that there was premeditation. And fourth, that there was intent to cause death. They got to put forth enough evidence to prove every one of those elements, that there was death of a human being, not a dog, not a cat, but a human being, with premeditation and with intent to affect the death of a person or of another person. Now, clearly, there's evidence to show that a human being died. That's the first 2 elements. And there's enough element to show that there was premeditation. Now, a lot of people think that premeditation requires that you go and sit down and spend a couple of days figuring out how you want to do something. No, premeditation can be done in seconds, just in seconds, just thinking about something in just seconds. And in this case, him having his neck on Mr. Floyd's, his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, that certainly met the premeditation statute element. Comes back, though, to intent. Did he intend to cause Mr. Floyd's death? That is the problematic element in the first-degree statute. The prosecutors in this case, apparently don't feel they have that kind of evidence. And that's why I believe they went with the third degree, which does not require them proving whether he intended to kill Mr. Floyd or not. They just need to show that there was a depraved mind. They need to show that he had no regard for Mr. Floyd's life, that he did an imminently dangerous act on Mr. Floyd. And if they got the evidence to prove that, then they can get the third degree. Okay? So they didn't want to go with the first degree. And so someone may say, well, why not just charge him with the first degree? And then if they can't prove the first degree, then let the jury do the third degree. Okay? Well, that takes a lot of back and forth and wrangling between the defense lawyers and the prosecutors and the judge. They got to fight out whether or not, in other words, the jury charge, this is the information that the judge is going to read to the jury just before they start doing their deliberation. And in that jury charge, it will say what the jury must find, what the jury must decide on, and both sides are going to be fighting as to whether or not it would include just first degree murder, or whether there would be lesser and included offenses, maybe first degree and third degree and manslaughter, or whether it would just be first degree. And if the court, if the prosecutor can't meet its burden of proving first degree, case is over. So I would surmise that the defense would fight any lesser included offenses being a part of the jury charge, so that the prosecution get one bite at the apple. Okay, and that one bite is you prove first degree or he walks. Okay, and no question about it, the defense would harp on the intent element. He did not intend to do this. He did not intend to cause his death. Yes, a tragic thing happened. Yes, we're heartbroken. The community is heartbroken over Mr. Floyd's death. But our client did not intend to kill him. He didn't wake up that day with the intent to kill Mr. Floyd. He didn't, when he arrested and put the handcuffs on Mr. Floyd, he did not intend to kill Mr. Floyd. Okay, that's where the defense will be coming from. And given that it's a police officer, a white police officer in a predominantly white jurisdiction, where most of the jury members are probably going to be white people, okay? And we know that most white people have a real soft spot in their hearts for law enforcement in the first place. So when you put all these factors together, okay, and then there's another factor too that I had been waiting for, and that is the medical examiner's report. Okay, was waiting on the medical examiner's report because it too is really important. I thought I had it here. Yes, the medical examiner's report says the Hennepin, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Hennepin County medical examiner conducted Mr. Floyd's autopsy on May 26, 2020. I'm sure Ben Crump is going to get an independent autopsy done by someone else. The full report of the ME, short for medical examiner, is pending, but the ME has made the following preliminary findings. The autopsy revealed no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or basically strangulation, or that he, basically choked him to death with his knee. Asphyxia or strangulation. Mr. Floyd had, watch this, had underlying health conditions, including coronary artery disease and hypertensive heart disease. So he had buildup in his arteries, according to the ME, and he had high blood pressure. Okay. The combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. So the ME concluded preliminarily that there were 3 contributing factors to Mr. Floyd's death. The restraint by the police officer, that is the knee on the neck, Mr. Floyd's high blood pressure, and coronary artery disease, and potential intoxicants, if he was high on something. Okay, so this certainly gives the officers some wiggle room, a lot of wiggle room. Okay, that's another reason why I do these cases. I've done thousands of them, and that's another reason why us lawyers know that if they had charged him with first degree, okay, and then if he was able to use the medical examiner's report and this and that to mitigate his culpability, then you would start at first degree, and then we as defense lawyers would be trying to get a discount, to get a plea bargain potentially that is far best than first degree. So you would end up with a third degree plea bargain type situation, if you follow what I'm saying. But if you're already starting at third degree, you're going to use all this right here to try and get the charge dropped, because you're going to argue strongly that the medical examiner's report says the cause of death could have been, was a combination of the restraint, but also because of Mr. Floyd's health condition and because he was potentially intoxicated. Okay? So they're going to be saying, hey, you want to put this in front of a jury and risk not getting a conviction? Or do you want to put something reasonable on the table that I can take back to my client and see if he is willing to take it and avoid all of us a lot of time?
Okay. So I wanted you guys to hear what he had to say about that, just so you could see that we were on the right page. Everything comes down to what they feel like they can actually get a conviction on. What can they get, what is it going to take to get a conviction of this guy? And this is what we're going to start with. I just write this on the post down to intent. I personally believe this intent was there before he arrived at the scene. That may have these things wrong, okay, but that man was walking and talking in the store. The officer caused that medical condition to kick off. Tippy, that's the thing. That's what the ME is saying. Even though, he had these medical conditions, they can't leave the medical conditions out now. But in spite of him having, or despite him having these medical conditions, you still put your knee in his neck. And had you not put your knee in his neck, then regardless of having these other medical conditions, he would still be alive. Even if he was intoxicated, had you not put your knee in his neck, he would still be alive today. So that's what this stuff boils down to. And when it comes down to the first degree murder, I'm going to show you guys this really quick, because we'll talk about this stuff, and he even mentioned the first degree murder on here, but it's good for you to actually see it so you can see what we're talking about. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put this up so you guys can actually see it instead of us All right, guys, sorry about that. It froze up on me. I see y'all saw that it froze up. Um, Honestly, we were sure the officer would be found guilty in my nephew's case because of all the witnesses and the officer admitted choking him. He would not be found guilty. No, not guilty. Um, Phoenix, I understand what you're saying, but you know, we got to look at everyone on an individual basis. Um, and I'm gonna stay hopeful on this one. Um, just knowing what I know and the fact that you know our local cases, people don't seem to care unless they get that national attention. With this case being taken all the way up to the attorney general, um, it's they can't just let the case go. And even if, let's just say by chance, he's not found guilty on state charges, he still has a federal charge that he's going to have to deal with. We don't know if that's going to be one, if it's going to be two. At this point, we don't know. But we do know that he has three different jurisdictions that are looking at him right now. And the state is the one that put these charges out right now. So, that's one thing to keep in mind. That's one thing to keep in mind. And even the color of law that the feds are possibly looking at, um, that can carry anywhere from 10 years to life to the death penalty. So it actually carries more weight than all of the state charges put together. And the 10 years wouldn't even apply to him because his behavior actually resulted in death. So that yeah, that federal charge carries more weight than any of the other charges. Um, I'm gonna see if I can pull this thing up because it died on me the last time I tried to pull it up. So let me see if it'll let me get it this time. All right, so I'm gonna put this on full screen so you guys can see the whole thing. Let me get this mess off here. It's trying to run an ad real quick. So here we go. Minnesota, first degree. First degree is the most serious, most heinous type of murder charge. In Minnesota, many different types of killings can be considered first degree murder, but all of them have aggravating factors. The killings that Minnesota law states deserve the most severe punishment include when the victim is a child or spouse who is continually abused at home, or a witness or judge who is killed due to their official duties. Sometimes it's the serious behavior of the defendant, such as committing a burglary, robbery, or sexual crime when the victim is killed, that deserves harsher punishment. However, even most of these murders do require an intent to kill. Thus, first-degree felony-related murders are distinguished from the felony murder rule that also applies to some second-degree felony-related deaths. The death penalty, it was abolished in Minnesota since 1911. Although from time to time a high-profile murder brings a movement to reenact the death penalty, it remains abolished. So that is not an option. The most severe form of punishment that Minnesota law authorizes is life imprisonment. This is the penalty of a defendant who is found guilty of first-degree murder. So the Minnesota first-degree murder statute, you heard Attorney Corbett reference Minnesota statute section 609.185. That is a statute for murder in the first degree. Minnesota law prohibits any intentional killing. However, some types of killings are more heinous than others. For those killings, first-degree murder applies. Murder in the first degree applies for any of the following circumstances. And like I told you guys yesterday, they have certain categories. They have to meet one of these circumstances. So I'm just going to go through them. But there's only one that would apply to him. as of today. The first one is a premeditated killing with the intent to kill the person. Premeditated is considered planned or prepared before the act. Premeditated, considered, planned, or prepared before the act. A premeditated killing with the intent to kill the person. The second one, killing someone while committing or attempting criminal sexual conduct. That does not apply. The next one is killing someone while committing or attempting burglary, aggravated robbery, kidnapping. None of that stuff applies. Killing a cop, prosecutor, judge, correctional officer. None of that applies. The next one involves stuff with the child. The next one involves killing someone while committing domestic abuse. That one doesn't apply. And then the last one is causing anyone's death while committing, conspiring, or attempting to commit a felony in furtherance of terrorism. Again, the penalty, murder in the first degree, is punished by life imprisonment in Minnesota. The best defenses or the defenses against this charge. And it's interesting that they put this on here, but this is a law website, so it's giving you all of the information. The best defense to first degree murder depends on the facts of the case. Some murder defenses are complete, meaning the person will be found not guilty if believed by the judge or jury. These complete defenses include innocence and sometimes insanity or perfect defense. That is, you needed to kill the person in order to defend yourself. Okay, other defenses can be only partial, so they only reduce the offense to a lower form of homicide, such as unreasonable self-defense or intoxication, which may get rid of the state of mind needed for first-degree murder. But it could still be second-degree murder or manslaughter. So they already put the manslaughter on there. He already has that down. So we're going to come back. Let me go here. So I want to make sure that you guys had this information. I'm going to just keep going with this stuff because I want to make sure that you have it. I want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. Let's see. Possibly no call received and premeditated in the first degree. I believe he knew him or bumped into him. Also, that the Asian guy called him to the scene to see who he finally was able to get. Just my opinion. And it could be possible. It could be possible. But again, y'all, speculation. It all comes back to speculation. Hey, Latrice, how you doing? We know speculation don't win cases. That is speculation. And the thing is, if Chauvin doesn't admit that he knew this guy, if they don't have a witness that actually saw them having some type of interaction, even if they went in and kicked the bobo every day, if they don't have a witness or some type of credible evidence that shows that they had some type of relationship outside of what happened that day, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like it didn't exist. And that's what's important in these cases for people to remember. We have our stuff that we feel, we do a lot of stuff based on emotions, our feelings, what we're thinking, our intuitions. But when it comes to that courtroom, they don't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about any of that stuff. And this is part of the reason, to be honest with you, that I'm sticking to discussing this stuff over on this side. Because if we try to get into a lot of this stuff when we're discussing other cases, it doesn't sit well with people. But I think it's good to look at things from all sides. As far as the complaint, there was something in the complaint that said that when the officer got up to When the officer got up to Mr. Floyd's vehicle, he pointed his weapon at him, and he pretty much forced him out the car. He forced him out the car. And there was a little, exchange, like Mr. Floyd wasn't going to let him arrest him at the beginning. Now, a lot of people said that didn't happen. We didn't see that on the video. Even Mr. Corbett said from the video that he saw that didn't happen. We have to remember that the video that everyone initially saw was just taken from that back end, and he was already on the ground. But I want to go back and
hello, everyone.
See if I can get this real quick. Let me do it this way. I want to go back and just let you guys see.
It's just after 8 p.m. on May 25th, and the security...
See this one. And I'm going to use this one because I don't want them hitting me with no kind of copyright stuff, but I want you guys to see this one. So when I say something, you'll know what I'm speaking on. If I can find it. Hold on. Watch a minute. Okay.
Cameras of this local restaurant are rolling. The indicated time is about 20 minutes past. A blue Mercedes has been parked curbside on East 38th Street for several minutes.
That's Mr. Floyd's vehicle.
We do not have footage showing when it arrived. George Floyd is in the driver's seat. A police car pulls up in front of this local convenience store, and 2 officers walk in. Minneapolis police said in a statement their officers responded to a report of a forgery in progress, meaning someone was trying to use counterfeit money in a store. A few minutes later, the officers crossed the street and approached the vehicle. The police said they found the suspect in his car. The first officer approaches the driver while his partner walks around to the passenger side. The interaction between the officer and Floyd...
Pause, y'all. Okay, I want y'all to go back because you can see at this very moment where the officer did pull his gun, like the complaint said. You can't see the gun, but you can tell by his gestures. Hold on, let me find out where that sound coming from. Okay, but you can...
officer approaches the driver while his partner walks around to the passenger side.
Right
the interaction
here
between the officer and Floyd.
So let me put my screen up. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm gonna try to take it back. If y'all saw it, then y'all let me know. You can tell at that very moment that he reached back into his holster, and just from his arm movements, you can tell that he drew his weapon at that particular time. I'm gonna take it back one more time. I wish I could freeze it.
The interaction between the officer and Floyd can't clearly be seen from this angle, but the driver of this...
Now you can tell when he's trying to pull him out of the car.
The officer struggles to get Floyd out of the car. His colleague walks over to help him put the handcuffs on. The black car drives off.
Now you see
Floyd
him
falls
down on the
briefly to
ground right
ground.
here.
The officer helps him back up before leading him towards the
I'm gonna take that back just a
before
little bit so
leading
y'all
him
can see it
towards the
again.
sidewalk.
Right
Floyd
there,
falls
there's a
briefly to
struggle.
the ground. The
Yeah.
officer helps him back up before leading him towards the sidewalk, where he directs Floyd to sit on the ground. A park police car shows up to the scene. Redacted body cam footage from that new officer was released by the park police chief. The officer exits the car to see his two colleagues questioning Floyd and two people who were just in the car.
So this is a new officer here,
A few minutes later,
and this is a new
the
officer.
officer helps Floyd up off the ground. The video has no sound, so we don't know what was said between the two officers and Floyd.
This is Officer Lane with the bald head that's taking him across the street. Now, if you watch right here, hold on one second. Right here, you'll see him drop his body
Floyd falls
down.
to the ground once more.
Right
Police originally
there.
said they noticed Floyd going
drops
into
his body
medical
down.
distress and called an ambulance to the scene. Another police car pulls up.
I'm gonna take it back one more time, just so you can see where his body
Another
drops
police car
down.
pulls up.
Wait a minute.
Floyd falls to the ground once more.
Right.
Police originally said they
there.
noticed Floyd going into medical distress and called an ambulance to the scene. Another police car pulls up, obstructing our view from this angle and making it hard to clearly see what unfolded in the next 4 minutes between the officers and Floyd. We do see Officer Chauvin pull up to the scene with his colleague, and behind the vehicle's open door, we can make out what seems to be a struggle. Whatever was happening between Floyd and the officers at that very moment caught the attention of this passerby who stops to watch. 2 minutes later, a witness standing on Chicago Avenue captures part of the scene unfolding behind the squad car. One officer looks over as 3 of his colleagues restrain Floyd, who is lying face down on the ground in handcuffs. We don't know how Floyd ended up on the ground. One officer is pressing his knee into Floyd's neck, which we see clearly in this video, taken only seconds later by another witness standing in front of the grocery.
Okay, I'm gonna stop that for a minute. I just wanted you guys to see that because there are a lot of different angles from the video, but I wanted y'all to see that the police cam, the body cam, has a completely different angle. And just based on what was written in that complaint, the complaint was accurate. The complaint that the state submitted, that complaint was accurate. Now, was that enough for them to say that he was resisting arrest? If he dropped his body down to keep them from putting him in the car, they could say that he was resisting arrest. The fact that he said that he was claustrophobic, and one of the things that the attorney had got into that I didn't play was the fact that he was over 6 feet tall and weighed over 200 pounds. When he's saying he's claustrophobic, he's telling you, man, I'm too big to be getting in the back of that car. So that's when they tried to force him into the car. And them forcing him into that car is what made him come out on that other side and end up on that sidewalk. So once again, you're still the reason that he ends up on the ground in the first place. The complaint says that officers got on the other side. First, they were trying to get him in on the driver's side. And then Officer Chauvin went to the passenger side, him and another officer, and they pulled him from that side. But they pulled him so hard, they pulled him out the car. And he landed on the ground face first with his handcuffs still on. And within a minute or whatever, they're on his back. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. But regardless of what happened in that struggle, regardless of whether or not he resisted, regardless of any of that stuff, that still had nothing to do with him putting his knee in his neck. Period. That had nothing to do with him putting his knee in his neck. There's no way that he can justify, and that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. There's no way for him to justify putting his knee in Mr. Floyd's neck, regardless of what was going on that day. there was no need for him to put his knee in his neck. And again, even with the restraining, and you're restraining him and he's laying on his stomach, he should have did exactly what that young officer was trying to get him to do. And he was already restrained. You should have pulled him up, or you should have at least rolled him on his side to make sure that his air was not restricted. And that's what he chose not to do. G2G, have a good night. That's what he chose not to do. So at the end of the day, there's no way for him to get around this not being his fault. None. None. Even if he wouldn't have got on his neck and he just left him on that ground face down and Mr. Floyd would have passed, he still would have been responsible for his death. The fact that he went and put his knee on his neck, that just gave them more physical evidence to get him for what he did. So, thank you, G2G. So anything that they could possibly put out there, and for this reason, this is why, they were fired expeditiously. That had nothing to do with the media. They got fired because they violated police protocol. That's why they got fired. And the police was not going to back them on that because they were dead wrong. That's it. And like I told y'all, I don't think the union gonna back them on that. Once you violate protocol, they'll back you as long as you're operating within policy. Once you violate protocol, you on your own. You are on your own, and that's why they have these attorneys now. I don't know if all of them have the same attorney, but I know that Chauvin has an attorney. I don't know if these other guys got it, lawyered up yet. It will behoove them to get lawyered up expeditiously. But I don't know if they got lawyered up yet. So did y'all see what I was showing you on the video? Because I'm looking at the responses. I don't see if you guys were seeing where I was pointing the arrows to show that they did have a little exchange when he pulled him out of the car, and he dropped his weight down then to try to keep the officer from taking him from around the car. But eventually he did go and walk around the car, and then he dropped his weight down again by the car. Now, I thought that he slipped off the sidewalk and went down, but I don't know. Again, none of these things have anything to do with his death, period. These are just talking about the things that may have transpired before this took place. None of this has anything to do with his death. There is no justification whatsoever. This is just talking about the things that actually happened. Just making sure that everybody has the right information. So whenever you're talking about these cases of people, or people are making comments and you want to comment back, then you can give them stuff that's based on facts. Everything based on facts, not based on speculation, what we want it to be, but everything based on the actual facts in the case. So wanted to keep you guys abreast once again with what was going on with all of the protests all around the country. Earlier tonight, we went over why Mr. Chauvin was only charged with third-degree murder, what first-degree murder looks like, what third-degree murder looks like, what manslaughter looks like, and how things may move forward in the future as far as his particular case, and how the cases of the other guys that are soon to come are going to be moving forward as well. So we discussed those things. We went over the complaint so that people would have some of their questions answered. And if they got into a conversation with somebody else, they would know how to answer the questions to some of these things. So we went over those things. Again, I put another blogger up here who's actually an attorney from Texas, and he gave his take today on the 3rd-degree murder charge and why they didn't do that. And you guys saw that we were pretty much in the same place, but why we thought that he wasn't charged with 1st-degree murder. So if you want to go back and watch that, just rewind this back when this thing is over. His name is Augustus Corbett. He is a defense attorney out of Texas again. But I just wanted to give you guys this information. Now, I come back tomorrow. Hopefully things will be even calmer than they are tonight. And people have gotten that anger out and that pent up frustration and whatever it is that they felt that they need to get out, that aggression, all that stuff. Hopefully, as the hours go by, then they'll feel like they've had a chance to release all that stuff, and then we can go about the business that we need to be going about in the search, in our quest for attaining justice for all of us. You know, that look kind of like this, you know, y'all know what I'm talking about. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. It is now 1:32 on the East Coast. Thank you always for sharing your knowledge. Have a wonderful night. Thank you, Latasha, and you have a good night. I'm not sure who's still on here besides Latasha. If you're still on here, have a good night. I appreciate you tuning in, staying abreast and what's going on. Remember, when we talk about justice, justice isn't for one. It's not just for the few. It's for everybody, and we cannot overlook the injustices that are going on. We can't just keep our focus on one thing. We have to look at everything that's going on. Everything needs to be addressed. Everything matters at this point. If it pertains to us, then it pertains to everybody. 10:33 must be nice. Must be nice. Yeah, it's 1:33 here. So yeah, this is what this is about right now. We're talking about justice. We're keeping up with what's going on with George Gregg. We're keeping up with what's going on with the Ahmaud Arbery, and we're keeping up with what's going on with the Breonna Taylor case. That's what we are focusing on right now. As far as the other case that, you know, we all have been talking about, I'm letting the folks over there handle those cases. Well, that particular, those cases, that was right. Those cases, just to help keep some of the drama down. I don't want to get mixed up in that stuff. So I think it's better to stay, you know, here and you know, put the information out to people that want to get the information without the confusion. So, it feels good to be able to just pass some information on to, you know, some folks that want to get it. And, you know, y'all know what it is. So I'm going to get on off here, you know, and get myself together to get some beauty rest up around this piece. So I will see you guys next time. I thank you for watching, and you all have a Tori Love, good night. Where you come from? Oh, Lord. Those cases are the entire world focus right now, and I pray justice gets served ASAP. I do too, Tori. I do too. And like I said, just in all honesty, and I'm just being real, you know, we can fight for these cases right here. And you see, there's no extra drama attached to these cases. People voice their opinions about what they think, if they think these people should have been charged, you know, what they think they should have been charged with, when they should have been charged. But there's no back and forth. There's no drama that comes along with it. There's no, you know, I know more about this case than you do. This is just us trying to get the word out, trying to make sure that people know what's going on, trying to show that we support everybody in their fight for justice, encouraging the young folks, you know, don't let the people that are there to distract, don't fall prey to whatever they have going on. And it's just our love. It's about helping our folks out. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you. I love you in real life. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.